Everyone. Thanks so much for joining me today. I am Jill Austin, a Senior Program Officer in the Division of Public Programs at the National Endowment for the Humanities. And today I'm going to talk you through and introduce you to the process for applying for public humanities projects. I'd like to briefly go over the agenda. For today, I will give you a brief overview of NEH and a little bit of an introduction to the Division of Public Programs. I will also give you an overview of the Public Humanities Project's grants and those different categories, and then give you some tips and important information that you should know before you apply so that you are able and eligible to submit your application. I'll also go over the review process and the timeline between the deadline submission and finding out whether or not your proposal was successful. I'll also give you some information in terms of how to reach us. And we strongly encourage you to reach out to us with any questions that you have along the way. Our current chair is Shelley C. Lowe. She is a citizen of the Navajo Nation. From 2015 to 2022, she served as a member of the National Council of the Humanities, the 26-member advisory body to the NEH. National Council members are nominated by the President and confirmed by the Senate. Founded in 1965, NEH makes grants using taxpayer dollars in all areas of the humanities and welcomes inter- or multidisciplinary work. Activities are geared toward different audiences, from the general public to educators and scholars. NEH grants go to nonprofit institutions such as museums and libraries, archives, colleges and universities, public television and radio stations, and to individual scholars. We don't support the creative art-making process or the performing arts. That's really the realm of the National Endowment for the Arts. And we don't support humanitarian work. Grants are made and fellowships are also awarded using a merit-based peer review process that I will talk about later as we go on in this session. What are the humanities? This is a common question. Disciplines that reflect on the meanings of the heritage, traditions, history, and culture of human beings. Our founding legislation defined the humanities as including, but not limited to, the study and interpretation of languages, both modern and classical, linguistics, literature, history and its subdisciplines, such as art history, music history, ethnomusicology, jurisprudence, for example, philosophy, archaeology, comparative religion, ethics, and artistic criticism and theory. And that falls along the lines of art history as well. We also support projects in fields such as anthropology and sociology, provided that they employ sufficiently humanistic methods. There are 7 NEH divisions and offices that comprise the agency, including the Office for Federal State Partnerships, which administers to the State Humanities Councils, the Division of Education Programs, the Office of Challenge Grants, the Division of Preservation and Access, the Office for Digital Humanities, the Division of Research Programs, and today's focus, the Division of Public Programs. My division, the Division of Public Programs, supports projects for broad public audiences to engage with the humanities. We support projects that bring analytical interpretation of humanities ideas and content to broad, diverse public audiences. That is also to say non-expert audiences. We support exhibitions, historic site interpretation, film documentaries, public discussion programs, and humanities-based community engagement, as well as digital outreach projects. All applications, as I said, and I will repeat this throughout our session today, should reach broad audiences and those non-experts through analytical yet accessible interpretation of humanities ideas. Going back to my earlier statement that we do not support the making of a work of art or a dance or musical performance per se, we do support the analysis and interpretation of art and performance. The Division of Public Programs offers 3 grant programs. Digital projects for the public, you can see here on the left, which supports websites, mobile apps, video games, interactive kiosks, and virtual reality experiences that are primarily story-based and really attempt to engage people virtually or online through humanities content. This differs from an archive, for example. You really need an analytical or interpretive framework to guide people through the experiences and get them to the content and ideas that you wish to convey. Media projects features documentary film support in long form as well as short form. Please note that short documentaries is now included under the overall heading of media projects. Short films may run 30 minutes maximum or less. Films can be as just a single film or come as part of a series. The same is the case for radio broadcasts and podcast series. But today we're looking at public humanities projects. On the right column, we support here historic site interpretation, humanities discussions, and museum exhibitions, as I mentioned. We offer support for this category twice a year, every August and every January. The next deadlines are August 10th, 2022, and January 11th, 2023. Now, the big question is who can apply? Who is eligible for public humanities project grants from the Division of Public Programs? Eligible applicants must be U.S. nonprofits, including those organizations with 501c3 tax-exempt status, such as a museum or a library, for example, public and 501c3 accredited institutions of higher education, colleges and universities, state and local governmental agencies, which can include county-run or state-run museums, for example, also federally recognized Native American tribal governments. Who is not eligible to apply? Individuals are not eligible to apply under this program. You must be affiliated with a nonprofit applicant institution. Foreign organizations are not eligible to apply, neither are for-profit entities. I will speak briefly to what we value and what we really look for in supporting strong humanities projects in the Division of Public Programs. Public programs projects must be grounded in humanities scholarship. They should deepen the public's understanding of significant humanities questions. What are those takeaway ideas through the interpretation that you're offering you want your public to walk away with? They should be interpretive. Projects should collaborate, rather, with other humanities scholars. We really are looking for a diverse group of scholars and content experts to engage with your topic, to help you shape it, to really push toward challenging ideas and engaging experiences to get at this content. Your project should attract a wide audience or target audience that is currently underserved by humanities programs. Who are these project formats for? What do you want them to get out of it? And also, how are you going to reach them? We also want to support projects that encourage dialogue and an exchange of ideas. We really want to get people to think critically, about the history or about the analysis of a text or work of literature, such as the Frankenstein novel. And you see an illustration here that references an Indiana humanities project from a few years back. Our division, I should also say, welcomes applications that include multiple formats for interpretation and encourages projects that work collaboratively with interdisciplinary scholars from other institutions as well. You don't want to present a project that feels too insular to your own institution and your own staff. You want to make sure that the source materials you're providing and the overarching narrative are through a robust framework, I should say, that provides an overarching analysis to that content. Here's what we support over the three program categories. Our division supports projects dealing with American, North American, and global topics, and they are primarily intended to be in-person experiences, such as exhibitions, historic site interpretation, or as we call it here, historic places in that category, and humanities discussions that involve humanities-based discussions and public programs. Some public programs may be virtual or feature a mix of in-person and virtual formats due to any continued COVID-related contingencies for social distancing, for example. And what is new this time is that we are also opening those formats up beyond COVID to offer long-term combinations of in-person and virtual formats. If you can provide an explanation as to why virtual or hybrid in-person or virtual delivery formats are best for your institution and audiences. All funded projects, as I will repeat throughout the session, must provide an interpretive framework grounded in humanities scholarship and aimed at engagement with broad audiences. I will speak to each program category individually now. Exhibitions. We support permanent or traveling exhibitions. Permanent involves a minimum of an exhibition that is up for 3 years or longer. A traveling exhibition must travel to at least 2 U.S. venues. One of those venues could be your own institution. We certainly welcome additional venues beyond the 2, but only 2 are required. We also offer funding for what we call a temporary single site exhibition that perhaps is more regionally based or is simply a project whose nature does not lend it to traveling to another site. In terms of funding, for permanent and traveling exhibitions, we offer planning awards up to $75,000 for pretty ambitious projects. And I would say the average award for a planning grant ranges from $40,000 to $45,000. For implementation, we offer funds up to $400,000 maximum, again, for projects that are truly ambitious and outstanding in the preparation of the proposal, as well as the scope of the project. For single-site temporary projects, we require that they be on view for at least 2 months. Planning funds are capped at a lower amount of $40,000 for a presumably smaller public reach for a non-traveling project or a project of shorter duration. For implementation funds for a temporary single-site project, we offer a maximum of $100,000 for those awards. Historic site or historic places projects may include new site interpretation, historic trails, permanent or temporary exhibitions at that site. There are a range of formats that you could consider here. They may take the form of living history, tours, exhibitions, additional public programs. You could even think about a historic place as an entire district, perhaps of a city or an area of a county. You could even think of parkland as a historic place. Like the exhibitions category, we offer funding in the form of planning and implementation. Planning awards are available up to $75,000. Again, the average may run somewhere between 40,000, 45,000, or 50, again, depending on the strength, the scope, and the potential reach of the project. Implementation funds, again, are up to $400,000. Humanities discussions is the one program category available only at the implementation level. Due to the nature of event planning, program planning, as many of you will understand, we anticipate that some of the initial months of the performance period will be occupied by that very program planning. Humanities discussions reflect some of the more recent changes that have come about over this particular notice of funding opportunity year for 2022 and January 2023 in terms of changes, and I'd like to go over them with you. We fund at this level implementation of a series of primarily face-to-face community discussions extending over a period of 3 months to 2 years. The average awards for these projects are somewhere around $250,000, maybe less, for those projects that are primarily of local or regional scope. We also offer, this is something new, maximum awards up to $400,000 for particularly ambitious multi-format projects with national resonance and reach. In addition, requests for funding, additional funding for positions in the public humanities are now allowable for humanities discussions applications. Under previous deadlines, this option has only been available for exhibitions funding and historic place funding. I will speak more to this shortly. In terms of formats, as I had mentioned a few moments ago, this is intended to be face-to-face primarily, but we also know, as we have learned over the past couple of years, that virtual access can really make a difference with institutions and with audience needs. And so we do invite a mix of in-person and virtual access formats as a long-term option. Again, we request that you provide an explanation for the need and the advantages that you may benefit from for that mix of in-person and virtual access in your proposal. Your application for humanities discussions must develop a series of programs or discussion events around certain humanities resources, such as an exhibition, works of literature, an archival collection, film media screenings, for example. I do want to say that unlike previous deadlines, another new feature this time for August 2022 is that applicants are no longer required to demonstrate that their projects speak directly to NEH's initiative, A More Perfect Union, regarding America's 250th anniversary in 2026. A More Perfect Union remains an agency-wide encouragement, but is not a requirement here. And on that note, I would like to take a moment to introduce you to the A More Perfect Union encouragement if you aren't familiar and if you have not yet started thinking about what your organization might do to plan for 2026 and the semi-quincentennial of our nation. A More Perfect Union, then, is a special encouragement that is a commemoration of the 250th anniversary of the founding of the United States. We encourage projects that reflect on our quest for a more just, inclusive, and sustainable society. This particularly includes projects that address racial justice, gender equality, the experience of underrepresented groups and communities, the evolution of the American landscape, and America's place in the world, and also speaks to principles of constitutional governments and democracy. If you are interested in getting more information about this initiative, you can look it up on our website, NEH.gov/250. Now, the big question, what funding level is going to be right for you and your project? I will go through some possibilities. If you are working on an exhibition or historic site interpretation project, have articulated humanities themes that you wish to explore in this project, can identify scholars, content experts, and consultants who are committed to collaborate and are enthusiastic about engaging the public on this topic, can describe approaches and techniques that will effectively convey those themes to your audiences, then you are ready for a planning grant. Let's explore this. Planning grants then may be used to plan exhibitions or historic site programs only. Remember that humanities discussions is only available at the implementation level. The planning grant may be used to refine your content, explore ways to think about the best feasible formats for that content or interpretive techniques. You may use this time to consult with scholars, content experts, and designers. It's really important, I think, to bring designers and media people to the table right away to help you think out how you can bring these ideas and content to life, to really engage with the public. You can use this time to also establish diverse partnerships with a variety of different institutions in terms of not only the planning of this project, but also to help promote it. You can use this time to beta test and prototype different components, engaging with different audiences to get feedback, which could include perhaps focus groups or front end or formative evaluation. You can also use this time to develop that preliminary design, the draft scripts of your text, and interpretive plans. Now we go back to the same question. What funding level is right for you? If you are in the final stages of production of your project, if you have collaborated with scholars and content experts and have continued to have consultations with them as they look over those themes, as you've refined them, maybe as they have read some of the draft exhibition script with you, perhaps as they are helping you work on the procuring of exhibition loans, for example, or planning public programs. If you have clearly defined those project themes and have fully developed that content, are very close to getting ready to go. If you have documents that you can include in your application that illustrate the project format in terms of the exhibition design, the floor plan, the different sections of the gallery or stages of experience, tour scripts in terms of some sample text, that really give us a feeling for how you are communicating the content, the overall tone and approach of the writing, and also that you can give us a sense of facilitator training, how you are really going to engage audiences and work with your own staff to work with the public to communicate this information and particularly to get robust discussion going. In all of these cases, you are then ready for an implementation grant. Let's talk about implementation grants. I should also note that planning grants are not a prerequisite to apply for implementation. So, implementation grants may be used to produce or implement the overall final exhibition, historic site project, or humanities discussion series. Bring it to life. You can use it to continue to meet with scholars, perhaps even adding additional scholars along the way if you feel like you need another perspective on a different discipline or expertise. You can use this time to fabricate the actual exhibition and install it and produce education materials, publish exhibition catalogs, develop the website, perhaps a microsite, and produce other resources such as a community toolkit that go along with this project launch. You can also use this time to provide project-specific staff training. Again, as I mentioned in the prior slide, this could include training for facilitation of discussion, work with discussion guides, really thinking about how all of your volunteers or docents or staff can best approach the delivery of this content and really engage with audiences. You can also use this time to advertise or promote the project online through social media and also through workshops and old-fashioned in-person engagement. This is also a period of time when you can conduct impact evaluation. If you have moved beyond the formative, you've launched the project, you can continue to collect and measure that impact through summative phase as well. I mentioned the position in public humanities option a few moments ago. I'd like to say a little bit more about it now. This is a special supplement to your outright requested funds at the implementation level only. Implementation level applications may include a job description and a justification to request an additional $50,000 over 1 or 2 years, then potentially for a total of $100,000 on top of and separate from your outright funds request to hire a new entry-level professional who has recently received an MA degree or a PhD within the past 5 years in a humanities discipline that's relevant to your project. So this might be museum studies, curatorial studies, public history, perhaps even a library science degree, for example. Existing staff at your institution are not eligible to be budgeted for this request. This must be a new hire identified through a national search. You also must pay benefits on top of the salary. And so I do want to stress that these monies, if approved, are dedicated for this position and cannot be used toward the overall project budget. And going back to humanities discussions, just another reminder that this position option is now available for humanities discussions applications. We also have another special supplement called the Chair's Special Award that I wanted to mention briefly. This is an additional supplement for implementation awards beyond that $400,000 maximum to possibly receive this honorary designation that can come with additional funds up to a maximum of $1 million. This award amount could also be less, perhaps somewhere between $400,000 and $1 million. Ambitious projects of exceptional significance and impact, broad national reach, are really what is under consideration for this level. This has to be an airtight, exceptional project. Applications must reach an exceptionally large national audience. They should include multiple partners and diverse formats for content delivery. I should note this is very rarely awarded. The most that we would award in this category would be perhaps one per year, if any. And let's get to the review criteria for all of this. Whether you are attempting to go for a Chair Special Award or a regular award, let's talk about the review criteria. The review criteria, such as what you see here, are what we ask our peer reviewers to use when evaluating proposals. This criteria is spelled out word for word in the Notice of Funding Opportunity, so you can see it as you prepare, and you can use it to help you craft your own case that you are making for NEH funding. Keeping this criteria in mind, so foremost, we are looking to support strong intellectual content and humanities significance. What are those humanities themes that really emerge from the content, the topics, and the stories that you are telling? What are the formats and the program resources you will use? Does this particular format make sense? Do you have sufficient program resources, such as a collection, perhaps a collection of oral histories or recordings? Are you working with other institutions and have access to those collections to bring this to light? Thinking about your audience. Who is the audience for this? Do you have the means to really reach this audience through an appealing project for them? How will you get there? Are you really gearing the content and experience or interpretation toward this particular audience? What are the qualifications of the project team and the advisors, who could include, again, those scholars, content experts, community elders, for example, tribal elders? What will they bring to the project? So you're thinking about the qualifications of the internal team to carry this out and manage the project, and also work with these advisors who we hope are enthusiastic, really interested in bringing their own scholarship or expertise to a broad audience, to get them to appreciate it and to learn about it. So we're really looking for people who are committed to the project and care about taking that expertise and making it appealing and accessible for people who don't know as much about it as they do or anything about it. And then the project feasibility, we're thinking about the feasibility of the budget. Does the budget make sense? The work plan, how do you propose to carry this out? What are those phases? Are you allowing yourself enough time? Does that all make sense? These are the overall questions that we are asking the peer reviewers to think about as they may read your proposal. I will take an opportunity to repeat the upcoming Public Humanities Projects application deadlines. Again, they are August 10th, 2022 and January 11th, 2023. It's worth saying here as well that if you find that you are in a bit of a time crunch approaching August 10th, it may be well worth it to wait until the January deadline to give yourself more of a cushion to prepare. If you are still needing to compile your advisors, you are waiting for letters or CVs from them. I would say if you are feeling like you are in a crunch, it's always best to wait and give yourself a little bit more time, and those extra months can help make your project all the more competitive. Now, know before you apply. I have put this in red as a red alert for some important changes for August and for January, you need to know in order to be able to apply for a federal grant, including an NEH grant. So we've got some critical information here. Some big changes have been made to the federal grants process that can prevent or delay the submission of your application if you haven't taken care of it well in advance of the deadline. First of all, if you haven't heard, DUNS numbers are discontinued. We no longer have to worry about DUNS numbers. However, we do need to worry about new requirements such as a UEI, a unique entity identifier, that is now required for you to be able to use SAM.gov. SAM.gov, that is the System for Awards Management, that you need to be able to apply for a federal grant. I have links here. You can go to just sam.gov. You can also go to gsa.gov to read more about this unique entity identifier. In addition to that, there is now a new process for creating logins to grants.gov. So if you have previously applied for a federal grant through grants.gov, your old login will no longer work. You need to create a new login going through login.gov. You now need to create a new login.gov account to be able to submit applications through grants.gov. I really wanted to repeat that again. I would say tend to this as soon as possible. Now. There are already registration backlogs for the unique entity identifier, and we have been long aware of some backlogs through SAM registration. So don't wait if you haven't taken care of this. It could really create delays. If you are in the process of submitting and you're running into issues with that, please do reach out to us to make us aware so we can at least be aware of what you are going through and that you are trying very hard to get this done, to get your application submitted. Another critical piece of knowledge that you should be aware of before you apply is that if you have an existing NEH award, it's very important that you keep up to date on those award report schedules. Make sure that you are up to date on all of them before you submit another application. If you submit another application that is approved by NEH, the actual processing of that award will be delayed if you have outstanding reports on an existing award that you haven't submitted. So please tend to those as soon as possible as well. Now, our website, neh.gov. This is the best source for the endowment's work. This is also the source where you found out, most likely, about this funding opportunity. It includes information on all of our grant programs, all of our deadlines, and a wealth of other information, including the instructions on how to apply for a grant and to get access to that grants.gov link that you need. The red circle indicates at the top of the page where you can search for grant deadlines. Once you have searched the list of available grants and the upcoming deadlines, and you've decided on your program, let's say you have decided on public humanities projects, which we are talking about today, then you can go to that particular grant program page. Sometimes we also call this a landing page for the program. Each of these program pages includes the same kind of information about the deadline. So on the right-hand column, for example, you will see what the deadline is, when the notice of funding opportunity will be up, when notifications or decisions on awards will be made. This page also gives you information about what we fund in the program. If you look on the left-hand column, some of that text just explains the variety of kinds of projects that we support here and the importance of that public engagement in this particular program. Lower on the page, you will find, going down toward the bottom, funding statistics for that program in recent years and contact information. So I'm showing you a screen that is roughly around the middle of the page. And what's important here is that you will find right here under this first red circle, you'll find that important link to our NOFO, also known as the Notice of Funding Opportunity. Sometimes we refer to these as guidelines for the program as well. You'll also see that there is a link for an FAQ document. And then below that is that important link to the grants.gov opportunity package, as it is called, through which you will submit the required files for your application. When you get into that grants.gov opportunity package, you would notice that there are different options to select for all of the categories and levels I've discussed today, such as exhibitions at the planning level or implementation level, historic places at the planning or implementation level, or humanities discussions. So there are different options to click on for whichever of those combinations you are applying for. But you can only select one of those. So I would say if you are applying for an exhibition proposal, stick with exhibitions planning. Below these links on the landing page, lower down under the second red circle, you will find sample narratives from select successful proposals. We have some that are available in all of these categories. Exhibitions planning and implementation, for example, historic sites, planning and implementation, and some discussion programs. I strongly recommend that you consult a couple of them to get a sense of how a past successful applicant articulated a strong case for humanities funding for a project. When you look at these, bear in mind that these samples were submitted under several past deadlines, even that they may reflect different requirements, even across a matter of 6 months. So something that was submitted under a 2020 deadline may be very different from a 2021 deadline. The order of contents, for example, may also be different. So these are not intended to be followed exactly in terms of how they are organized. They are really intended to serve as models to help you think about how best to frame your own project. But when you are putting all of these requirements and components of the proposal together, it is important that you follow the exact order that they are asked for within the current Notice of Funding Opportunity. We've got some tips here for competitive proposals. NEH grants are always competitive. That is the way it is, but we do have some tips to help you put your best case forward. Competitive proposals are written for broad audiences. Don't assume of your readers. Don't assume that they have any prior knowledge or know your story or your topic as much as you do. I would also avoid using jargon that may be overly academic or too specific of your particular project or locale without explaining it in an accessible way. Explain why the project is important. Why does this matter? Why does it deserve NEH funding? And provide context and further explanation for that importance. We really want to know also how scholarship is incorporated into the project. How will your scholars and content experts work with you? It can be helpful to know as you discuss humanities themes. If you are bringing certain publications or bodies of research that one of your Advisors has published recently. If you are incorporating that and taking that into account for how you're shaping this historical context for public audiences, it's important to know that. Again, we really want to know that the collaboration with scholars and other partnering institutions is strong. We want those scholars and content experts to be enthusiastic and to really write their own letters in support and commitment that reveal that enthusiasm. We also ask that you provide evidence that it will reach an audience. We ask that you include audience numbers, even if this is a small audience. It's important to develop a proposal and an experience that that really prioritizes quality over quantity in that way. But how will these ideas resonate? How will the content resonate even with a smaller group? Do you have any strategies for sharing this information and this experience with other audiences? How can you potentially expand that audience base to get at this content? And then I have some tips for competitive applicants. Competitive applicants follow directions. You read the NOFO or the Notice of Funding Opportunity not once, but maybe twice. You may be turning to it again and again as you prepare your proposal. Make your information easy to find. Comply with the requirements as they are expressed. Comply with page limits and other requirements. If you go over, for example, you can run the risk of having your proposal be ineligible. And after all of the work you are putting in, you don't want that to happen. I would also advise you, again, as you are reading and rereading, take careful note of new requirements and changes, particularly in the Notice of Funding Opportunities budget instructions. There are some new steps or requirements that are conditional depending on the nature of your project and your budget. In some cases, you may need to submit one or more sub-recipient budgets if other parties are doing work to complete your project and are taking funds, will receive NEH funds as a result of that. So I would be mindful of those additional steps that you'll need to complete this time around. This is new language. It can also be helpful to have an advisor on the project read an earlier draft as you're working on it to help strengthen it, perhaps to answer some questions or rephrase something in a more effective way. Again, this is a team effort. It always helps to get that feedback as you work in order to turn in the strongest possible proposal that you can. And beyond your immediate colleagues and your advisor colleagues, we encourage you to contact a program officer. We are always here to help. We answer questions about the grant programs, whether or not your project may be a good fit. We offer advice on preparing applications, and we provide feedback on draft proposals. Even if you only have a few pages, maybe it's 5 pages, maybe it's 10, maybe it's just the narrative section of your proposal, we can give you some feedback on that. And I think it makes a difference. You will see on that landing page or the program page that we have draft deadlines for each deadline. So for the August 10th deadline, for example, the deadline to turn in draft material to us is July 6th. The application deadline, if you are looking to January 11th, for example, is December 7th. It's important that you get those submitted in by that deadline so staff, such as I and my other colleagues, have sufficient time to review them and provide feedback. We tend to work first come, first served. And so it's always important that everyone who seeks out our assistance can get some feedback in a timely manner. I'd like to go over the application review process briefly. People always wonder, how does this work? After you have submitted your proposal, all of the proposals will be sorted onto different panels. And they tend to be geared toward specific categories such as art history or US history into rough topics such as that. The peer review panel will consist typically of 2 practitioners who may be museum staff, educators, curators, or designers or multimedia people in the case of digital projects, and then 3 scholars or content experts who are helping to lend that scholarly expertise to the content itself. So we're looking for the formats, how you are communicating these ideas, and then the scholarly undergirding of your experiences. From there, NEH staff will then make recommendations for funding to the National Council on the Humanities, those 26 presidentially appointed professionals. And from here, all of these steps are advisory. Any questions that they have, any advice that the National Council makes to the chair is taken into consideration along with ours and along with the peer reviews for the final funding decision by the NEH chair. So the NEH chair will take all of these comments, questions, recommendations, and considerations in mind when making the final funding decision. And this process takes about 6 months from the submission date, the time that you submit your application, to the announcement of the awards. And this is that timeline. So if you submit at August 10th, 2022, we go through a panel process roughly until March of 2023. It will be under review over the fall. Our National Council will meet in March of 2023. Decisions will be made soon after, within the next couple of weeks. Notification of decisions will be made in early to mid-April 2023, and the grant period will potentially begin on May 1st of 2023. If you are applying at the January 11th, 2023 deadline, your proposal will be under consideration over the spring months, aiming for consideration and review at the National Council meeting in July of 2023. Again, it will take a couple of weeks for final decisions to be made, tending to happen around the end of July or beginning of August. Notifications of decisions will be made in August, I would say the first couple of weeks in August, the beginning of August to mid-August. And then if you are awarded, your grant period will begin on September 1st. Just a few final reminders before we conclude today. Make sure your organization is eligible to apply. Be sure to look up these new requirements for the UEI at gsa.gov in order to be able to register with SAM. You also need to set the new login.gov account to be able to access grants.gov. If you haven't done it already, do this now. Again, make sure you have your reporting on any existing NEH grants up to date. And also check out those samples of successful application narratives and the other resources on our website and the program landing page. I hope you have found this presentation helpful. As I conclude, I wanted to repeat the most important step for success is to contact someone like me, a program officer. We are really here to help you We strive to support the humanities for public audiences through grant making and are here for you. You can contact us through our main public programs email address, which is publicpgms@neh.gov. And I or one of my colleagues will receive your message and reach out to give you comments via email or to set up a discussion or meeting with you. I can't stress this enough. We really are here to work with you and to help you. I wanted to say thank you so much for viewing this presentation today and for your interest in NEH's Public Humanities Projects program, as well as our other programs. I wish you the best of luck on your proposal. Thank you.